This is Damon Albarn, and you're listening to Hallelujah Monkeyz, the number one Gorillaz podcast in the world.
Hello and welcome to Hallelujah Monkeyz for November 21st. My name is Dylan Flynn.
My name is Trevor Ickrath. Dylan, Thanksgiving is this week.
It is. We're having a baby shower this weekend, actually.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, but it's also more shit that we gotta do and get ready for and plan out and run errands around. I don't know, man. Are baby showers really that fun, or are they the least fun kind of party?
I wouldn't want to go to one.
I think we're going to do like a onesie decorating station where you can theoretically like draw a boner onto a onesie, and then my child will wear that boner onesie.
That's great. That's great.
It should be lovely. I kind of feel like a sort of a I don't know, deadbeat dad of this podcast right now, because sort of things have loosened up, you know, we're like, the episodes, they come out whenever they come out.
It's fine. Look, we cleared like that initial run where I think we had to prove ourselves. Now we can, we got that Damon quote at the beginning of our show now. We can just kind of coast on that for like a hot minute, I think.
That's true. We can loosen it up a little, kick the feet up a little, right?
Exactly.
Except for when we have entire operas to somehow unpack, and then it doesn't feel a lot like I'm kicking my feet up at all. Trevor, you want to get into the news?
Yeah, let's talk about what's been going on with this little band that we sit down and chat about for an hour and a half every week, Gorillaz.
It's all good news now.
Well, the phase is not in its most exciting uptick of activity, but I mean, there's still stuff to talk about, Trevor.
Right, especially considering, they're trailing their shit all over Europe now.
It's true. Let's see. First of all, Jamie Hewlett's art book finally came out, the big hardcover one. It has a whole Gorillaz section, but I watched like a YouTube flip through of it, and to my eye, there was nothing in that section that has not previously seen release elsewhere.
Was there any material from the content we're going to be talking about today?
There may have been, but the flip through that I saw did not include any. So I don't know.
Between this and all the other stuff we're going to be talking to, Jamie Hewlett is on this show this week.
It's true. Jamie Hewlett is let us never forget that he's one half of the Brain Trust, and this not being a visual medium of podcast, maybe sometimes he gets a little shortchanged. But
I feel like we never talk about him.
Maybe he gets a little shortchanged just kind of in general,
Yeah. He's definitely he's an underrated contributor to the group.
Do you remember how this phase they bring things up and then kind of never go back to them again?
I don't think Gorillaz has ever been guilty of that.
Well, I'm just thinking of some examples. The Cool Clown Clan with the robes. I'm thinking of the business card that Murdoch reacts to in the strobe light video. And now,
pretty much everything about the strobe light video, you mean?
Yeah, pretty much. And then I would have also, until just now, thrown Solar Kong, the roving Gorillaz recording studio, into that bag, but it's actually made a couple of new appearances.
Don't count it out yet. It's back, baby.
Yeah, it was at Demon Days previously.
And now it's showed up in Munich and Budapest.
That's right. No tracks yet. I don't know if they did any live streaming like they did last time, but so far, whatever was recorded during those shows either was deemed not good enough for a release or needs a little bit more time in the incubator. So we'll see.
The last thing we heard from those were pretty cool. Not quite a Gorillaz song, but I mean, I enjoyed that thing they put out.
Yeah, it was cool. It felt like, in a post-humans world, the line between an unrelated group of musicians and Gorillaz has never been thinner. So I encourage it. Let's get more cool pop music from...
If I can talk about it on this podcast, let me at it.
Yeah, bring me that content, right?
They've been there to talk about some actual Gorillaz songs. It sounds like the Europe shows are actually getting pretty buck wild. They're pulling some cool stuff out.
This kind of seems to be the pattern, right? Like they get back from a little break and then they're very conservative for a while, and then slowly they start to stretch and
they start
break
showing
out.
their hand a little bit. I'm very jealous about this. They played Ticker Tape in Geneva and Munich.
I know. They played it once previously in Boston because they had Carly Simon on hand, but other than that...
Man, I love Ticker Tape.
Absolutely. I think among the fandom it's probably like one of the if not the most well-regarded deluxe
Right.
Coda songs.
Maybe
just
in my
among
top
general
5 on
fans.
Humans, honestly. I don't know.
It's
I'd have to
very
think
good.
about it.
I'd have to
And
think
like,
about that too.
and like that's not it though, because like it sounds like these shows are going like Damon is going nuts at these things. Did you see that picture I sent you of him in Munich performing Feel Good Inc. with a horse head mask on?
With the meme horse head mask? Yeah, I saw it.
That boy.
Well, look, of course it's my job to read too far into everything, but do you think that, like, in order to stomach playing Feel Good Inc., a song that he doesn't seem to like very much, he needs to do silly showmanship stuff to make it fun for himself?
Do you think he doesn't like Feel Good Inc.?
Well, why isn't he playing it?
He did it at his live show. He didn't need to do that.
That's true. Maybe he has, like, a complicated relationship with that song, as I guess you would when you have that song,
yeah.
you know? Cloud of Unknowing made a debut in the Encore at Hamburg. A little bit emotional, Trevor. A little bit of an emotional moment.
Yeah, I mean that's a Bobby Womack song.
And we had Damon on the lead vocal, which a version of that existed, right? Was that from a radio show that we heard?
I think
that
it was
version?
from a radio session, and it's very nice. It sounds like a Good, the Bad, and the Queen song.
It does. It definitely does.
It's got that guitar picking pattern that Damon loves so much, I think.
And I suppose Damon playing that in 2017 kind of imbues it with a new level of meaning as kind of trying to live up to a friend of his who's no longer with him.
Of course, yeah. You know, I still remember at, what was it, Demon Days Live, him yelling, "This is for Bobby Womack." And just like when they did Stylo, I loved that.
Yeah, it is very sweet.
Yeah.
Clearly a very important man to Damon Albarn, you know?
Right. But I think this might be the most important news bit of the week. Like, especially when it comes to new live stuff. They played Hong Kong.
Yes. Top 10 on Trevor's Gorillaz favorite songs of all Gorillaz songs of all time, I believe. Or Trevor's Gorillaz.
And not only did they play it, it's looking like we're getting some closure on the whole lyrical debate.
That's true.
About what exact effect those neon lights have on Damon Albarn.
Well, yeah, some listeners have reached out to us saying that apparently, like, some sheet music was posted, maybe by one of the band members on Instagram, and visible on that piece of sheet music. The neon lights make me come, not calm.
Eventually, we're going to get a screenshot of those lyrics. And when that happens, I want you to have Vindicated by Dashboard Confessional from the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack queued up and ready to play behind me.
Absolutely. Good. I mean, I don't exactly know how we're doing all these visual things on this podcast, but I'll do what I can.
Okay.
But they played Hong Kong and Budapest and Prague and Berlin and Dusseldorf. Like, it's back. It's back with the vengeance.
That's great. What were the arrangements like?
Damon had an acoustic guitar on around his shoulders, but he was kind of only sometimes going back to it. It sounded like from the clip that I heard the zither, but it must not have been live. I can't imagine it was live. But the piano arrangement sounded very pretty, and Damon was kind of prowling the stage, but in like a more sweet, slow, ballady way, you know?
A kind of gentle prowling.
It was very nice, and I'm glad to see that song back. It's a fan favorite.
I can't imagine hearing that song in 2017. That's buck wild.
Well, they also kicked off one of their encores with Spitting Out the Demons a little while back, too. So it's sort of like D-Sides is having its little moment, right?
It's in play. Everything's on the table. It's great. When do you think we're going to hear a G-side, though?
I want to hear Dracula. I think Dracula is doable because Mike Smith already plays the saxes on that song, I believe.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Pretty sure. So
they just need to get a saxophone.
Exactly. I'm sure he's got one.
Maybe we'll finally get Philip Cypher back in the fold for that sweet performance of either Clint Eastwood or the Sounder.
Ooh, the Sounder would be
crazy. Would be cool, right? I would love that.
If I was at a Gorillaz show and they started playing the Sounder, I feel like it would take me a full 15 seconds to understand what was happening.
What if they started walking on to Hip Albatross? Wouldn't that be neat?
Oh, that'd be really cool too. Get a little bit of noodling from Damon.
Get a little bit of noodling. I like it.
You know,
I like
that's one of the band numbers.
Yeah. You wanna get into the round table?
Yeah, I guess so. Let's do it, right?
Yeah, let's take a little journey to the west.
Yeah.
Okay. Dylan.
Yes, Trevor.
It's 2004. A Chinese actor and director named, I'm probably going to butcher some of these names, so apologies.
Sorry. Can we just say right here in advance, we're just going to barrel forward with our best attempt to pronounce a lot of things in this episode.
Yeah.
Understand that it's all wrong.
It's 2004. A Chinese actor and director named Chen Shizhang decides that he wants to put on an opera. But not just any opera. An opera based on a book. But not just any book. No. He wants to put on an opera based on Journey to the West, a 16th century novel by Wu Sheng'an and one of the 4 great classic works in all of Chinese literature.
Yeah.
Basically, this guy reads this book and he's like, wow, this is awesome. Let's make an opera about that. But staging an opera is no easy task, right? So what does this guy do? He decides, in a move that you and I and any listener of this podcast should be quite familiar with by now, he decides to rope in a buddy of his to go in on this project together with him. Who's this guy? It's Jean-Luc Choplin of the Théâtre des Châtelets, which is in Paris.
Okay.
So Shen goes to Jean-Luc and he's like, hey, I want to turn this book into an opera. And Jean-Luc goes, all right, well, I'll work on cooking up a script, which he does. Of course, though, you need more than a script to put on an opera, right? You need some music. But to quote this podcast's favorite Adult Swim superfan, these guys no speak a day English. They can only do the math.
They can only do the math, sure.
What I'm saying is they need someone to whip up a soundtrack for this bad boy.
Right.
So Choplin starts looking around for a composer, and eventually he brings his search to Alex Poots, who's the director of the Manchester International Arts Festival. The Manchester. Haven't we been there before?
Yeah.
You see where this is leading. Anyways.
Very famously, we were there at the Opera House.
Anyways, Jean-Luc goes, Alex, you gotta help me find somebody to write some music for this opera I'm working on. You know, I've got this Chinese actor director breathing down my neck, and I'm starting to get desperate here. To which Choplin replies, hey, calm down. You know me, I know people. I'll find you a composer. Just tell me though, what's this opera about? Well, Jean-Luc looks at him and he says, it's about a monkey. And just like that, Choplin remembers. He remembers these two impish little these 2 blokes who he just so happened to meet when they were interested in putting on a show in the Manchester opera scene themselves.
Yeah.
And he remembers that one of them had a band. And then he remembers what the name of that band was.
Right.
So he looks at Jean-Luc and he says, I think I know just the guy.
Right.
And the rest is history.
Alternate take. Jean-Luc asked him, can you find somebody? And he said, do you want me to get somebody who knows how to compose an opera, or do you want a famous person so we can make some money?
That might have happened too.
Wow, that was like a Melvillian saga that you just took me on, Trevor.
Hey, we're talking about a 16th century work. You know, there's stuff to talk about here when it comes to how this thing got made. By the way, we're talking about Monkey Journey to the West, an opera that Damon Albarn soundtracked and Jamie Hewlett did art design for in 2008, 7.
I believe that the stagings were 2007 and 8, and then the album came out in 2008.
Gotcha.
I searched high and low for a bootleg of the show. I really wanted to find a bootleg of the show. There's usually a pretty active, internet community around filming live stage shows.
Right. I mean, but this is Damon Albarn's 2008 Monkey Opera, not like Hamilton.
Yes, it is. And not to mention, it was only staged just a handful of times, man. It was in total, I think it was staged maybe 10 times.
They did it in 2007 and 8. Did they do it over here a little later than that?
They did a Lincoln Center. They did a Lincoln Center performance in 2013.
That late? Wow, I thought it was 2010 or something.
With a vastly different cast as well.
Okay.
I was very checked out to the whole project at the time, so I didn't.
Oh yeah.
Was not even aware that this was happening. I got to tell you, I've never really felt less qualified to do anything than to
Then
provide
to talk about a Mandarin opera on a
yes,
podcast.
than
Yep.
to provide any kind of meaningful, critical information
Yep.
about a Mandarin opera. But
Yep.
all I can do is speak to my personal relationship as it has evolved with this material, and whatever shortcomings are my own, and I gotta own them. But I mean, I still feel woefully incompetent. That's how I would describe myself. The reason we're doing this, of course, we're in the collaborator season of 2 or more members of Gorillaz family. This is the partnership. This is Jamie Hewlett and Damon Albarn. Jamie designed the whole stage show and the costumes and the backdrops and everything. Damon composed all of the music and also I think had direct input on kind of what songs would be about, although the writer worked pretty closely with him on it.
Right. And depending on your definition of Gorillaz, this is a Gorillaz work. Because, who's Gorillaz? It's Damon and Jamie.
I mean, it's pretty damn close, right?
And I think that's what they were thinking. That was their mindset. That was their working definition for Gorillaz at this point in time, because they wanted to market this as a Gorillaz project.
Right. So they said that I guess the idea is that as far as Jamie and Damon are concerned, if Jamie and Damon are making a thing, it's Gorillaz. As far as lawyers and and record labels are concerned, that's not the case.
And probably Murdoch Nichols too,
Potentially
How do you
also
think he would
Murdoch
feel about that? We'll never forget, it's his band.
It is his band. I wonder how they would have, like, if EMI had said, okay, then this is a Gorillaz thing. Do you think that they would have tried to have been like, and 2D as Monkey and Murdoch as the Sandy the River Demon? And
No. I think this would be Gorillaz Presents, and I can see it so clearly, like a We Are the Jury about this, where like Murdoch is going like, yeah, you can't. How do you follow up the greatest album ever, Demon Days, with just another album? We had to make an opera, or we decided to dabble in other stuff instead of just following up our magnum opus. Noodle and Russell could talk about how the original novel was originally political allegory. That seems right up their alley.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
I think 2D would go into he would probably talk about this old Monkey TV show that Damon and Jamie actually mentioned in interviews.
Oh, I watched a little of it this week too. I watched some
cool.
of Monkey on YouTube.
Damon and Jamie were actually already familiar with the whole Monkey story when they came onto the project, because apparently there was this adaptation of it that would show on British television when they were 11. Apparently it was very poorly dubbed into English.
I would almost describe it as imagine the 1966 Batman series, that kind of very colorful, very silly vibe. And it definitely is engrossing. I was able to watch probably a good 40 minutes of clips of that thing before I was like, what am I doing? I have shit to get done. I have to go do something else.
Right, so I think 2D would probably talk about watching that as a kid, because that seems very 2D.
Well, and I think that was Jamie and Damon's pathway into the material too.
Right.
For our generation and the generation that follows us, obviously our pathway into this material is Dragon Ball, which is based off of the same legend and material.
It's clearly very influential on Dragon Ball's creator Akira Toriyama.
Monkey, let me give you a meta overhead, although I will kind of get with each song, I'll kind of tell you where we are in the narrative.
Yeah, because even the album is kind of a very straightforward adaptation, it feels like, most of the time.
Pretty straightforward. It's a little weirdly balanced just in terms of what they spend a lot of time on versus what they kind of gloss over. But yeah, it is, they're not going crazy as far as breaking from the source material. The idea is that it is about a group of a monk and some demons who are trying to redeem themselves by getting some scriptures from India and bringing them into paradise to return to the Buddha. And our title character, Monkey, is a sort of a punished for his hubris type character, kind of a fearsome warrior who ran afoul of the Buddha and needs to prove his mettle by going on this kind of holy journey.
Not quite as pure-hearted as Goku.
No. A little bit more flawed.
Yeah.
Do you have some adjectives? I do.
I had to pull them out right before the show. I've got whimsical.
I like that. That's good.
Picaresque, if I may quote Colin Malloy in The Decemberists.
Picaresque meaning
it relates to an episodic style of fiction dealing with the adventures of a rough and like usually dishonest but appealing group of heroes.
Yeah, sure. Like that's probably as close to textbook definition as you can get. I know that sounds
that's what Google says.
I know that sounds weirdly specific, but if you like look through a lot of your favorite kind of team up ragtag hero type of stories, they're all quite picaresque in a way.
And this one applies both to the plot and the feeling, and I think Damon's mood going into this adventurous.
Adventurous. I think that's there are parallels between this ragtag of demons and our own, London duo of demons.
Our boys.
I did a decent amount of research this week trying to get ready for this. I guess we'll just get into it as we get into the songs. Do you want to just try to embark on this journey with me to the west?
Let's start this journey.
Okay, our first song is Monkeyz World.
First, actually, before we get into the track by track, I want to talk about something that Jamie mentioned in he mentions there's this like 20-minute National Geographic documentary about making Journey to the West, and like kind of half of it is Damon talking about the music and half of it is Jamie talking about the art design. But Jamie actually mentions something very interesting about the album. And he says that this is kind of like there are two versions of Monkey. There's the opera that they created together, and then there's like the kind of post-production like stuff that they finished up after it was already being staged, the album included. So
yeah, basically once they got it into the studio, they started to play with the material again.
And that's when he says that it became like a Gorillaz album.
Yeah, which hearing that from Jamie Hewlett made it very difficult for me to shrug off the idea that we need to kind of think very seriously about accepting Journey to the West into the canon of Gorillaz albums.
Although, at one point, at the very end of the interview, they ask, "How is Monkey relevant to Gorillaz fans?" And Jamie is unable to answer the question. Well, he starts saying it's not, and then Damon grabs at his dick. Just during a National Geographic documentary, and they joke around about it, and Damon's like, I wasn't able to grab it. It's fine. They're married.
Oh yeah, they're for sure. They're a deeply invested romantic couple.
Grabbing at each other's junk on a National Geographic documentary.
For sure. Perhaps being a bit ape-like in their behavior.
Sure, like a couple chimps.
Yeah, this is another reason, Trevor, why I desperately wanted to find a bootleg so that I could hear those differences between the stage version of the music and the album version. But this strikes me as something that must sound a little different than it did on stage.
And I really like the way it sounds. Like this is one of the more pop-oriented ones. It's got a lot of builds and like climaxes and kind of more traditional vocals.
Pop is an interesting word to use because structurally, I don't think these songs are very pop at all. There's
one or two that are, I would argue.
There's really there's a lot of refrain, but there isn't necessarily a lot of hook or chorus or whatnot. Things often don't really have endings either. But the thing that I think is kind of wild are just these arrangements. I mean, they're blending this synth and the voice and then the chattering monkey sample so seamlessly that it almost feels like one continuous instrument, but it's these three very different, elements, and it's so unusual. The melodically, it's a little bit simplistic. I mean, it's worth mentioning that. So, Fai Yang, who plays Monkey in this thing, doesn't sing at all on this record. He only kind of speaks as Monkey.
He also doesn't really have a lot of vocals on this record. Usually, when people are singing, it's other characters.
Typically, it's someone they've encountered on the journey. Typically.
Yeah, he's almost like a cipher, kind of. Like, he's our stand-in point of view character, almost.
But even outside of his kind of non-melodic delivery, the melodies here aren't necessarily very complicated, but the arrangements are so interesting. And I love the little wind-up, when in the middle, before it goes into the outro, it does this very Gorillaz-y sounding like wind-up thing in the middle.
Yep. I love the driving bass line, too. That very cool, very Murdoch Nichols.
Very simplistic, too, but in kind of a cool way.
The ambience at the beginning of this track really works for me too. It sounds like a recording or like a field recording of like a busy street, kind of like here's some traffic sounds.
I think it literally is. I was looking at the liner notes.
Yeah, it really feels like we're being taken out of our reality and into like Monkey's world. Hence the track title.
For sure. I think that's totally intentional too. I think that's exactly what they were going for, as a matter of fact.
And you sent me the English lyrics to a lot of these songs. I don't have them in front of me right now. I should probably pull them up. Do you remember what the ones for this one are?
Yeah, so this song is about kind of the simplicity and innocence of life in the forest among the monkeys. Monkey is hatched from his stone egg at this point in the opera, and although things in the forest are simple and good, he's unsatisfied essentially.
I always saw because I've never seen Monkey as kind of like an innocent character. Like the lyrics are what fun, life is easy or something like that. I always saw that as, or I'm saying always when I looked up these lyrics an hour ago.
Right.
But I initially read it as him as it offering us a glimpse into his worldview where he only lives for pleasure and everything is about self gratification.
I feel that, but I believe that the staging of this number anyway, I believe, is there are many monkeys in the forest. So I always kind of saw it as more describing the natural order of things and how things are supposed to be for the monkeys. But
a lot of the staging is very Cirque du Soleil, right?
Crazy. Yeah, definitely.
I hate that shit. That shit fucking creeps me out.
The fact that it's hung on the Jamie Hewlett designs, I think, makes it more interesting to look at.
There is a lot of cool design going on. The artwork for this, I'm sure it's in that book that just came out, right? Because it's very cool. And I wish we had a graphic novel of this. Even more than a good concert recording. I feel a graphic novel would be sick.
That'd be awesome. Also,
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing about Monkeyz World is after the song ends and the little brass
horns?
section. Yeah,
Love it.
Pretends
Love
to
it.
be monkeys essentially. Does this little it's like a tuba and a trumpet and maybe a trombone doing their best attempt at monkey chatter.
That's really good.
Really good. I really like it.
It also kind of reminds me of the national anthem by Radiohead, where it sounds kind of all the horns have kind of slammed into a brick wall and are a little broken now. There's kind of bleeding quality to them.
You mentioned pop, Trevor, and I was trying to, as I studied these songs, think would I ever playlist this one? Right? Could I grab this and drop it in a playlist? And I think that this one is on the side of being playlistable. It would be.
I would say there's a handful of songs here that I wouldn't mind just coming up on shuffle, and this is definitely in that group.
Absolutely. I don't necessarily feel the same about our next song, Monkeyz Travels.
No, this is really just kind of incidental music, but it's cool and ominous and a little foreboding, and it's interesting because it's not really the kind of music you would attribute to a traditional hero. So I think this was Damon kind of trying to convey that Monkey is more of an anti-hero kind of. He's an edgier figure, he's just kind of out to serve himself at this point.
I feel that there is some dialogue in this song, and I couldn't track down a translation of it.
Right.
Sonically, it really reminds me of the Demon Days intro. The you are now entering the harmonic realm. The way that the stuff behind it gets kind of noisier and more high passy and looping with the kind of stately, ominous delivery of that dialogue really reminds me of the Demon Days intro. I don't know, these tiny snippets that happen, especially up front, make this thing feel a little bit less like an album. I kind of wish they had just assembled the best possible, here are all the numbers from this thing, and here's our Gorillaz-y version of it, rather than using this material and then maybe put this stuff out as B-sides instead.
It would be a very different beast. Sometimes, and I actually do kind of like it, eventually, sometimes this turns into, Damon Albarn's weird ambient record. And there are times when that's more effective than others. Can we talk about this next one? Because I think this is one of my favorite examples of it.
Into the Eastern Sea. I don't like that synth voice. It's too reedy. It's too farty to me. I'm not really into that.
Ooh, we got to disagree there. I like that this is how Damon chooses to represent the sound of going into an underwater kind of world.
I feel that. I much prefer its companion track that happens later, but. I don't know. This sounds like an arpeggiator to me. I'm not even sure if this melody was necessarily composed. It sounds a little bit like some notes running through an arpeggiator. But I don't know. This doesn't. I mean, in the narrative, so Monkeyz left the forest, and this is him diving into the Eastern Sea, where he's going to swim down to the bottom. I don't know.
Just for S's and G's.
Yeah, pretty much. I think in theory what he wants is recognition and power. Like that's
Who doesn't?
right? Don't we all, Trevor?
Yeah. All my life I want money and power.
Respect
my mind or die from mud shower.
Or die from an iron rod, which
we're gonna get pretty soon. But first we got to travel into the living sea.
This is lovely.
This is
very
also
lovely.
in my top 3. My top 3 are very front-loaded.
This is top 3 for me. Zeeling, who plays the flying fish here, almost does no wrong on this record. I say almost. We'll see where maybe she got done a little dirty at one point, but I think she sings like a fucking angel. I think this song is really gorgeous.
It's like a very peaceful lullaby.
It does evoke a very nautical feeling though. Like it almost, you know what it kind of reminds me of, Trevor? Like a more artistically elevated, like water level of Super Mario song.
Neat. A lot of this sounds like it could be like N64 music or something, right?
Yeah, I feel that. There's a very distinctive string instrument in this song, Trevor. I believe it's called a Zhang Ruan.
It sounds very cool.
He's adding a lot. That Zhang Ruan player, I believe his name is Cheng Ying, and he's adding quite a bit here to that arrangement. Can we take this song, since it's so sort of melodically up front, to talk really quickly about how Damon wrote melodies for this opera?
Right. I read it. I watched this in the documentary, but I don't feel capable of explaining it, so I'm going to leave that one to you.
So I think David Albarn went slightly insane writing this opera. Like, I think there is definitely a feeling. I'd love to know what he went through in the writing, because
you can see it in his eyes in that documentary. Something happened. What our end result here is this very uneven, weird thing that was kind of not what Western audiences looking for, and not really what Eastern audiences were looking for either. Like, this thing couldn't really find a home. Damon was banging his head against the wall trying to figure out how to write in the pentatonic scale. So Chinese music, at least traditionally, we know our Western chromatic scale goes do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and then it would resolve into another. It would endlessly resolve up into another do. That's a 7-note scale. That's a chromatic scale. The Chinese pentatonic scale is 5 notes. So you have a lot less to work with and a lot bigger spaces. That's 2 less notes.
Much bigger spaces in between.
Yeah.
And so Damon was kind of explaining how that was so frustrating for him, and he couldn't figure out how to write melodies. So then I'm gonna give you a direct quote, and then you decide if David Albarn went slightly insane. Okay?
Let me hear it.
To the Western ear, it's 5 notes that seem to be very repetitive and don't go anywhere. I had a really important breakthrough where I was staring at the communist 5-point star, and I put 5 notes from the pentatonic scale on the points of the star, and imagine what that might sound like if you started to rotate lots of these stars with these notes, but rotating at different speeds. And out of that came a number system. End quote. No further elaboration.
So that's the influence of communism on this album. Damon Albarn, Antifa confirmed. It's all starting to come into place. You know, the anti-Trump stuff.
Do you remember that fun story that Carrie Levy told on the show about when Damon was giving Dennis Hopper direction, and he was like, just do it like Dennis Hopper. And he was like, oh, yeah, okay, I can do it that, right? A similar thing apparently happened to Jamie Hewlett, where he was making designs for this show and like submitting them to the director, and then the director would just say no, but he wouldn't offer any information. And he kept submitting, and then finally he was like, "What am I doing wrong? What do you want that I'm not doing?" He goes, "I just want it to look like Jamie Hewlett art." And he goes, "Oh, right." And then he said, after that, it became much easier.
Yeah, Jamie definitely got the easier side of the stick on this one, or the easier side of the iron rod.
Which is hard to imagine considering he had to design a full stage opera. But yes, I agree. His side of the bargain was a little bit easier this time around.
Yeah. So we're getting closer to that rod, but we got to talk to somebody first.
That's
if we want
true.
To get
we got to talk to the Dragon King. Oh, I guess we should mention the Living Sea is like it sounds. It's about the sea, these flying fish singing about all the things in the sea, and Monkeyz swimming to the palace of the Dragon King, and then the next song brings us straight there to the palace of the Dragon King for a song called "The Dragon King."
Monkey shows up and he's like, hey, give me something cool.
Give me some cool shit.
Give me some cool shit.
He kind of bullies him.
He does. Monkey's kind of an asshole.
He's a bit of a dick. And then Wang Wei is playing the Dragon King here. He's very shouty, and
He's a total pushover, though. You know, if a monkey came up to me and was like, hey, give me some cool shit, I'd be like, no, get the fuck out of here. I'm a fucking Dragon King. I live under the water.
That's true.
Like, what are you doing here? I'm in a crystal palace.
That's cool.
Do you see this place?
Pretty badass. And I saw some of the designs for the Dragon King, the Hewlett designs. They look really cool.
Yeah.
They're using some effects here on Dragon King's voice. I kind of dislike all of the instances of like heavy vocal affecting that are used on this album.
A lot of it sounds kind of corny.
To be honest, it just gets in the way. Like the fact that these are often in-character performances maybe make them less pop music, less musical to the ear, but like this unnecessary extra layer of vocal effect processing feels really unnecessary to me, Trevor.
It rarely works for me, yeah.
And this is one instance where I'm kind of like, I don't know. Damon's rotating communist stars seem to have steered him a little wrong on this song too, Trevor. Like, I think that this bass line is dumb and kind of nonsensical.
This song is really plotting.
It is, right? I do kind of like when the brass kicks in and everything sounds a little bit more sinister and like there's some cool textural higher strings being played, but like it doesn't really resolve into anything, and that vocal effect's kind of annoying. This doesn't really do anything for me.
No, the English translation of the lyrics is pretty boring too. He's the Dragon King. He cares a lot about how many pounds each of these things he's given Monkey weighs.
He's like, this thing's very heavy.
Yeah, over and over again, we get it. But then finally, we get that rod.
Yeah, the iron rod. This is like
the iron rod.
I don't know, man. This is like monkey chatter. This is the what's his name? Is it Fei Yang is doing like his ooh ah ah stuff.
Behind a very stirring and beautiful string piece, though. It sounds like he really fucking loves this rod.
There's a pretty string piece here. It's a little simple. Like, it feels more Western than some of the other pieces on this record to me. I don't know.
A little more cinematic and less opera.
Yeah, Monkey seems pretty happy about his weapon, though, right? He likes his rod.
He also bullies the Dragon King into giving him his clothes.
Yeah, some armor, which is, you can see all the kinds of pictures of him in that armor. Then, in my favorite of this album's like little mini interludes, we have Out of the Eastern Sea, when Monkey returns to the land. I love this weird, messy little synth arpeggio. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the music in Portal 2, when you're like sliding around on the goo.
It reminds me of Into the Eastern Sea.
I like this version of it a lot better. I like the synth voice, and I like how the arpeggio is a little wonkier and a little crazier. But yeah, I mean, I would almost playlist this if you wanted an interlude in a playlist you were making and you were doing something kind of conceptual. I could see like throwing this in for some texture in a playlist.
This is definitely at the top of my like Damon Albarn as ambient artist
definitely.
Selection here. I like this one a lot. Next one though, Heavenly Peach Banquet. This is my number one on the album.
Number one on the album, absolutely, in my opinion.
I don't think you can argue with it. It's just a really, really pretty song.
I've been like, it's been stuck in my head all week, as a matter of
because
fact.
It's got a great infectious hook.
Beautiful. And Xingling is back. This time she's playing the fairies and the Heavenly Mother Queen, and her voice is so beautiful here. I could cry. It's just what a beautiful delivery. Excellent blend of like synth and traditional instrumentation on here, totally seamlessly blended. And I love when the fairies do their la 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 la's. It really reminds me of that was it Minnie Riperton song "Lovin' You"? La 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 la. Anyway. I love the little chattering laughter of the fairies in the background during the second verse too. Like this, it's very visual. I really like this. I love the slow burn in the outro too, like the very slow build that takes us out of it. What's happening here is, so Monkey continued to swim through the air and up into heaven, I guess.
Because now he's got this rod and he's like, yo, check out this rod. I'm really cool.
He crashes the party. The heavenly queen of mother, or the heavenly mother queen of heaven or whatever, she's put on this banquet with these magical peaches, and if you eat one of these peaches, you'll become immortal. And he eats a bunch of peaches.
When you really only need one, though, right? I mean, how immortal can you get?
Well, he's a dick. He's being a dick.
I guess. Maybe they were really good peaches.
A gluttonous dickhead.
Yeah.
This is so playlistable. This is beautiful.
This sounds like the arrangements are so nice. This one sounds like it could have been on that really good Grizzly Bear record, Yellow House.
For sure. I could definitely
It's got that same kind of Baroque quality to it.
If this was a result of a number system involving rotating stars, then perhaps the number system was not all bad. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. I mean, famously,
sometimes you get your Dragon Kings, sometimes you get your Heavenly Peach Banquets.
It's true. Famously, Rivers Cuomo was all about this number system shit, right? He loved writing formulas to make pop songs and then forcing his band to play them.
And underage half-Japanese girls.
But I mean, this is Damon as Rivers Cuomo here, using mathematics, using formula to try to compose music. And I don't know if this is truly a result of that number system. Maybe he's onto something. This is a very haunting, beautiful, infectious melody.
Buddy Hallelujah Monkeyz.
Can somebody painstakingly insert Murdoch Nichols into an episode of Happy Days for me? Is anybody going to do that?
Buddy Hallelujah Monkeyz. Next up is Battle into Heaven. This is where things kind of turn south.
Yeah, so the Queen Mother of Heaven is now calling on the Buddha to come and destroy Monkey for crashing her party and being a dick, essentially.
Right.
Poor Zhengli. She has such a pretty voice, but they've submitted her to some really nightmarish screeching on this on this
Yeah,
song.
I mean this sounds like everybody in heaven is fucking pissed. I mean the strings are very ominous and kind of like freaking out. There's this deep like brass sounds going on. Like somebody has smashed the in case of dickhead monkey eating all of our immortal peaches, break glass alarm, and Buddha's coming.
It's very unpleasant to listen to.
Yeah, yes, it's bad to listen to.
I mean, Zhengli is a soprano, a high soprano, and when you add the weird kind of nail on chalkboard vocal effect that they've added here, ooh boy, it kind of sounds like when you digitally slow a sound down and it gets that weird like stutter to it. It sounds a lot like that. And at the end, she ends with this terrible like screeching call out to Buddha, and it's oh boy, it'll make the hair on your back of your neck stand up for sure.
It's rough.
It is rough, and even the arrangements here are not great. Those strings are kind of annihilatingly dumb, and the horns are kind of annihilatingly dumb, and
yeah,
I don't know.
You know those Tibetan stars, man.
For sure. I again, at times it's sort of like if they were going to gorillify some of this material, they might have gone a little further, or maybe not as far in some of the directions they went.
Well, to quote Murdoch Nichols in every Gorillaz interview ever, every album's got to have at least one track that's just totally fucking shitty, right?
Yeah, I guess so, right? I don't know if that's a direct quote. That's more of a paraphrase.
Sure. Our next song is Omi Tofu.
Yeah, so this is when the Buddha shows up and brings punishment to Monkey by entrapping him in his giant hand for his crimes.
Right.
Amitofu is the Chinese name of the Buddha, and it means like boundless energy or light or something.
It sounds like pirate jet.
It sounds like a lot of mouth harp.
Yeah.
And I don't love the mouth harp, but whatever. This is cute and Gorillaz-y, and honestly, just about anything would sound pleasant after Battle into Heaven. So,
and it's only a minute long. How can you argue with that?
For sure. I probably wouldn't playlist it. It's a little thin, but it's cute, and it's a weird entrance for the supreme ruler of heaven to show up to. But whatever,
If Buddha showed up and this was playing, I'd know I'm in trouble, though.
I guess that's true. It doesn't. Yeah. Does it really read as ominous, though? I'm not sure.
I think you can tell that some shit's going down.
Perhaps. But it is kind of cute and fun, though. I'll give it that.
Next song, though, not quite so cute and fun. We got Whisper.
But I kind of like this one. I think
this one's cool. It's very, very atmospheric, very foreboding. It sounds like it could be like from a challenging part of like an old PlayStation Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, so here's where we get one of our main characters' first appearance, Guan Yin, who in Buddhism is like the goddess of mercy. And I think we make a 500-year jump in the narrative, like in the middle of the song, more or less.
Which is a long-ass time for somebody to just be holding you in their hand.
For sure. I mean, but everything, they say one of the like in-jokes of Buddhism is that everything takes 10,000 years. Like, how long was that guy in that place? 10,000 years. Okay, and how long did it take this person to achieve enlightenment? 10,000 years. So like, there's always like massive amounts of time in Buddhism. So yeah, basically Guan Yin, who's the goddess of mercy, decides that she's not going to give any to Monkey and that he's going to stay there. And then 500 years later, she shows up to this monk, Tripitaka, and then tells him that he's got to go to India and gather these holy scriptures. This is how long it's taken us, Trevor, for the journey to the West section of this to actually start.
I already feel like we've been talking about this album for 10,000 years.
And we're
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we're already almost to like a halfway point of this record in a way.
Yeah. So we're putting a team together. You know, Nick Fury showed up. He's like, we got to go get some scriptures. I need our top brass on this one.
Yeah, Guan Yin is the Nick Fury here. So then I guess Tripitaka is like our Captain America and Monkey's like our Iron Man, more or less here.
I feel like Monkey's more like the Hulk, you know?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. He is the kind of brutal beater type, right?
Yeah. And you know, he feels like he's being a little more coerced into it than the rest of them kind of are.
That's true.
Yeah. But Buddha finally opens his hand back up. Monkey gets his first fresh breath air in for sure. 500 years or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like I do like this song. It's very interesting. It's like it's got this ominous build to it, and like it's called Whisper. I believe her name is Jia Ruhan, is playing Guan Yin here. She'll show up again later, and she delivers the whole thing in Whisper, and then it's got these like slow creeping piano scales that are getting higher and higher. It sounds like both ethereal and kind of like scary at the same time. It's not poppy at all, certainly, but I like this piece. It feels tense. It has a good deliberate build. I like what Jia Ruhan is doing here with the whispering. I don't know. This is cool. This works for me.
And Damon kind of carries that tense atmosphere into the next song, Tripitaka's Course.
Yeah,
I would say
this is like I think Tripitaka. This I think in the narrative is where Tripitaka and Monkey have joined up. I think, and it just sounds a bit noisy. It's a little bit noisy.
Yeah.
Strings,
sounds like maybe
synths.
Two people who don't necessarily know each other very well or even agree with each other are kind of setting out on this journey, and they're not quite so sure about how it's going to go.
That's a good point, because I mean, a Buddhist monk has a very particular way of looking at the world, and it really couldn't be further apart than the way that Monkey looks at the world, with violence and covetousness and etc.
Did they give him that rod back?
I believe he's got the rod. He's got the armor.
Rod.
He's ready.
Gotta get that rod. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Confessions of a Pig, Trevor.
This one's cool. I like this.
It's very interesting. So this is where we meet Pigsy.
It's
this waltz. Zhu Keija is the actor who plays Pigsy here.
I hate his vocals.
The lyrics in the translation for this song I could not find anywhere.
Right, so like I've never been able to find these. What's he confessing?
Well,
what has this pig done?
I know. I happen to know. I did some research.
All right, let's solve the mystery. Let's put this together. Let's put this to bed.
So in countless years ago, not quite 1,000, but many years ago, Pigsy was the commander of a giant heavenly army. He was a man like you or me in heaven. And one night he went to a party, he got very drunk, and he tried to seduce the goddess of the moon like a pig.
Hey, we've all been there. He was
a piggish motherfucker, and so the goddess of the moon told the Jade Emperor. The Jade Emperor banished him from heaven, much like the Academy did to Harvey Weinstein for his piggish behavior. And he now lives on Earth as this pig demon, and he must live 1,000 mortal lives, Trevor, and each one will end with a love tragedy.
Huh.
Isn't that
it's tough being a pig.
Fucking brutal.
It's tough trying to find love when you're a pig.
When Pigsy sings, it doesn't make for very nice listening But Jun Keija is doing some solid work here as an actor, I think, kind of imbuing this performance with pain and pity.
Oh, yes, it's very expressive, and he delivers it very well. I just don't like the way it sounds.
No, it just sounds a little weird. I do like the weirdness of the arrangements, the weird little waltz that's like mostly held up by the synth. This doesn't like hang together as music, but it is compelling. Like it's interesting to listen to, you know?
Yeah, and it's nice to have one more somebody else along for the ride, right?
Is this our Russell surrogate? Would Russell play Pigsy in the version of this?
Hey,
where
no, definitely not, because Pigsy has 2 whole songs all to himself, and
Yeah, that's true.
There's no way you're gonna get that much Russell face
That's
time.
a good point. You make an excellent point.
I think Noodle and 2D would probably be like, yeah, Pigsy's a little based. He's kind of based on some stuff that happened to Murdoch, and Murdoch would be like, no way, you know?
Yeah, I feel that. And then we wrap up the core members of our crew with the next track, the titular character, Sandy the River Demon.
Avengers Assembled.
This is Hee Ji-jun who's playing Sandy. There is not a lot to this performance, in my opinion. It feels kind of inferior to the Pigsy number to me, and it's retreading a lot of the same territory, but I don't know. It's a little bit forgettable, but just to catch you up on the lore, Trevor, Sandy was also a general. He broke a vase that belonged to one of his heavenly superiors out of rage, and as his penance, the Jade Emperor hit him 800 times with a rod and then sent him down to Earth, where he had to be a river demon.
How do you think that rod was better than Monkeyz?
Probably, if the Jade Emperor.
Monkey got his from a dragon king.
I know, but the Jade Emperor lives in heaven. You got to imagine he's got like power over some shit, you know. And also, he's a bit like really. Monkey ate some fucking peaches, but this Jade Emperor seems to be a real dick. Like these punishments are brutal, man.
800 times.
That's a lot of lashes with a fucking rod.
Yeah. Being a river demon, though, that sounds kind of cool, right? That sounds like kind of a sick gig. You know, I'm going to start putting that on my resume. River demon.
And then comes the March of the Volunteers.
I like this one. This is very jaunty. Kind of a now the whole gang's together, and we're gonna ease on down the road.
Well, you know, Damon said that he, much in the way that the book was political allegory of its time, he wanted the opera to be the same for modern day China. I think that him being an Englishman makes that a little tricky, but this is actually a blippy, synthy take on the national anthem of the People's Republic of China of the same name.
Okay.
Here's a thought exercise, Trevor. Imagine that you were watching some kind of a weird impressionistic opera about America that was written by like a Chinese pop star, and in the middle there was a weird blippy take on the Star Spangled Banner. Like, how would that make you feel as an American / as an audience member?
I'd be interested to see the reaction, what the reaction would be when we inevitably get some like opera performers like starting to kneel during it.
What would be our equivalent? It would be like the story of Paul Bunyan, and Blue the Ox would take a knee.
That's exactly what it would be.
Yeah, for sure. The only other thing I wanted to say about the March of the Volunteers is that I like the wordplay here, where Tripitaka's crew, like, technically are volunteers, but I mean, their lives are all so shitty that it barely seems like they have a choice here, you know?
I mean, for a monkey, it's either this or getting back under that hand. Buddha's going to snatch you back up and hold you there. Sounds really inconvenient, though, you know? I mean, that brings you down to one hand.
For sure.
You got to grab onto this other guy for 500 years.
And I mean,
anyway.
Buddha's a gentleman of some size. I don't know if he's got anxiety problems, but that palm could get sweaty, which would be a real bummer.
Maybe he uses, speaking of anxiety problems, maybe he uses Monkey as like a little stress ball. You know, maybe he squeezes him and his head blows up for a second. And
what a nightmare.
I could see that like on like a Jamie Hewlett storyboard or something.
That sucks. Yeah, that would suck, man. That would really suck.
You want to talk about this next song? Because I think it's really cool. The White Skeleton Demon. This one's cool. It's like a Dark Souls boss theme.
Oh yeah, I like that. That's a good take on it.
Yeah, really
I really
cool.
like this woodwind part. It's so mournful and really interesting how that melody winds together. And the narrative thing that's happening here, although I believe that there's not really any vocals on this track, is that like a demon shows up in disguise to try to eat Tripitaka, and then Monkey kills the demon, and that horrifies the monk Tripitaka because he's a Buddhist monk, and he doesn't believe in that kind of violence. So he says, "You're out, Monkey. I had enough of your shit."
Classic personalities clashing when you get a group like this together. You know, these people weren't exactly designed to work together, and you know, it's no surprise that they're running into some problems.
Yeah, for sure. The way that what I assume is happening at that moment towards the end of this track, Trevor, you know, when like there's like a really bludgeoning string thing that happens. It's kind of a little bit Bernard Hermony, where it's like John. Like I'm assuming that's the musical representation of Monkey beating up or killing the white skeleton demon.
Dylan, it could very well be.
But I think it kind of ruins the song a little bit. Like everything that's happening up to that point in the song is like really interesting, and then that bit is kind of like, all right. Every time Monkey gets angry and beats on some shit, it gets all bum. I don't know.
It does sound very Dark Souls though, so I'm gonna give it a pass.
I guess that's true. Try playing this. Can you? Is there like in Dark Souls? Can you walk up to a little boombox and say, "Hey, swap out this music"?
Dylan, the only reason I was able to listen to this album was because I played it while playing Dark Souls. Trust me, it works.
That's good to know. Should we move on to Monk's song?
Let's talk about Monk's song. I don't really care about this one, though. It kind of feels like a retreading of like some stuff that earlier songs did better.
I could kind of feel that. I like the way that it plays with the next song, but we'll get to that when we get to the next song. So the Spider Woman, who is very heavily featured in the promotional imagery of this thing.
Some weird ass creepy Cirque du Soleil shit.
For sure. So she captures Tripitaka and is gonna kill him, but Monkey saves him at the nick of time and gets rejoined the group.
How Lord of the Rings? Getting captured by a big spider?
Yeah, it's very what's that thing called? Sheba or something? Or
I don't know.
I don't remember. But she's played by Zhu Haolu. I don't know. I think the vocal performance is good. She does a good job sounding kind of like otherworldly and beastly and like the indifference of nature. She's just gonna suck your blood because that's what she does, you know. I was very excited, Trevor, to look at these liner notes, which I had a hard time tracking down because I believed the second I heard a zither, I said, "Oh shit! It's gonna be Chen Wei Man from the studio version of Hong Kong or Zhang Zhen from the Manchester performance." But no, it's just some other random ass Chinese zither player named Zhao Ran.
Turns out more than 2 people know how to play the Chinese zither.
But why does David Albarn need to work with 3 different Chinese zither players? Why can't he just pick one and stick with it?
I mean, how much work could those people get? You know, I'm sure he wants to, share the love.
Listen, Phase 5. People complained about there being no acoustic instrumentation on Humans. Phase 5, just get all 3 of them, and it's all Chinese zither and Damon vocals. And then
an album of Hong Kongs, I wouldn't even object. Do it. Let's do it.
They could do that little thing where they harmonize each other's melodies like Thin Lizzy does with the electric guitars on The Boys Are Back in Town.
Avengers Assemble. Hey, you know what I love?
Buddha?
I love Buddha. Love that guy.
I love how this song reuses the melody from Monk's song, but now it sounds way more hopeful and like, beautiful. It also kind of restates the waltz like thing from Confessions of a Pig, and it trades off with the noise and the melody like it did in Monkeyz World. It feels like we're kind of weaving in a lot of things that we've already done, but in this kind of...
We've also got those kind of arpeggios from like the Eastern Sea songs.
Yeah. I really think this is a masterful little piece. This is my favorite instrumental track on the album, and it rounds out my top 3 on the record.
I could possibly bump The Living Sea off my top 3 for this one, I think. I could see that happening.
I dig it. I dig this one. This is for sure playlistable for me. It feels Gorillaz-y. It feels like of a piece with the rest of the material on here. It hangs together in the Western sensibilities. I feel a little bit like vindicated to criticize some of the non-Westerny sounding shit here, because here's the thing, Trevor. You are probably the same. I was not raised in any kind of an Eastern musical tradition, so I can't really tell you the difference between good traditional Chinese music and bad traditional Chinese music.
No, this isn't exactly in our wheelhouse.
But at the same time, Trevor, it's not in Damon Albarn's wheelhouse either. So
No.
I feel like I can criticize the melody things on here that don't necessarily work, because he doesn't know what he's doing either. So my big aha moment this week was like, all right, if it doesn't sound right to me, it probably isn't right. It probably is a failed experiment.
Blame it on those stars.
Yeah, blame it on the stars.
Blame it on the stars.
Wow, that's very romantic.
It is, isn't it?
But I Love Buddha is a great song.
It's
that I
very
do really
cool.
like.
It's very cool. But let's get into rank, because we've got some marching to do next.
No, yeah, we're the March of the
What's
Iron
going
Army.
on by this point in the story? Where's this army coming from, Dylan?
So here's where we move into the like last section of this record, which is all about Princess Iron Fan. So she's this princess. She has this big magical iron fan. She has a huge undead army of zombies, and the landscape is covered in fire. And the only way to put that fire out is to get her to let him use that fan and make one little wave with it. But she's not doing it. She won't let him use it.
There's a very amusing little arc in the original Dragon Ball series that kind of takes a lot of cues from this one, with Goku having to get a fan to put out some fire.
March of the Iron Army is probably the most like explicitly musical numbery feeling song on this record. Would you agree with me on that? Like, this feels like it could show up in a traditional stage musical to me.
Like a Broadway show, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It also is pretty straightforward.
When are we just gonna get a straightforward like Broadway musical from Damon Albarn?
Well, wasn't that Wonder.Land?
No, because like he didn't really write the lyrics, did he?
No, he composed it.
Like, what I would love to see is like a Broadway, like an across the universe style Broadway musical.
Oh
that
God!
just draws
not
on
a, not a jukebox musical of David Albarn's work.
Yes,
Is that a
Dylan.
future episode?
That's
Are we gonna figure
gotta
out?
be a future episode.
Oh God! Okay, yeah.
I am 100% certain there was a playlist on my iPod when I was like 17, and I like had a plot like paced out. I wish I could remember, but like it wouldn't have surprised me at all, because like, you know, I'm a fucking nerd.
Sure. I think that'd be a great future episode to do. We should totally do that. That'd be really funny.
All like spanning all the eras of his career. It'd be so good.
Here's what I love about this song, Trevor, that it sounds like a war march, and they're holding back the percussion. You're expecting this like big timpani to come in, you know, once the beat drops or whatever. But instead it's this cute little drum machine that comes in that's like bish, bush, bish.
Damon
bush,
loves his
behind-
shitty little drum machine sounds.
behind this like massive chorus of fearsome soldiers marching. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I see the vision here. I'm back on the same page with Damon here. I understand what he's doing, and I would almost playlist this. I have a show tunes playlist, Trevor.
Okay. So you said you kind of understood what Damon was going for with this one. Here's where like the next two songs I get a little lost, because you know you pick up Monkey Journey to the West, the soundtrack in stores maybe, and you're looking at the track list and all of it looks pretty like in place, you know, like the Dragon King, sure. I expect to see that here, you know. Heavenly Peach Banquet, that sounds like something that would be in a Mandarin opera. You know,
feel that.
Sandy the River Demon, White Skeleton Demon, makes sense. Pigsy in Space.
Yeah, that really sounds Jim Henson-y, doesn't it?
What's going on here?
I know what's going on here. Pigsy is very hot. He feels very warm. He's complaining about the heat. It's I found the translation of this. I had to dig a little bit. But yeah, the landscape is covered in fire, and Pigsy wants to quit because it's very hot. This strikes me as significantly more musical than Confessions of a Pig. I quite enjoy that glissandi that's happening, and that I think that might be some kind of a key instrument. I'm not sure.
I like this one a lot. Why is it called Pigsy in Space?
Well, I think the idea is that like he's kind of lost his focus is the idea. Pigsy in space isn't like Pigsy spacing out. He's He's much too hot. He's no longer, because Pigsy, he's a little lazy. That's one of his issues.
No, try again. We can't sell that to the public. You got to come up with a better reason for why this one's called Pigsy in Space.
I mean, he's not in space, so I don't have a better example of why that's happening.
I do like this one as a song, though. It's very pretty, and it sounds like he's in space.
I like that. Yeah, the little walkie-talkie crackle that keeps happening is cool.
And it's like almost like a kind of very low gravity kind of beat.
Got a little heartbeat drum. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very understated. Although he's still buried behind that weird effect, I actually think Zukasia is doing some kind of lovely operatic singing here. I think that...
And again, very expressive.
Very expressive. The phrasing is very weird. The melody kind of stumbles and fits and starts almost the way that it did in that Dragon King song, but here it kind of works for me. Like I can feel the number system a little bit, but it's kind of working, I feel like,
Okay. Here you might say that the stars are in our favor.
Exactly. Yeah. Or maybe they're not giving us what we expected, but we feel thankful for what we're given anyway.
Right. Next song, another kind of weird title, Monkey Bee. Is he a monkey or is he a bee?
He's a bee in this song.
I've really lost the plot here, Dylan.
So they can't cross over the giant undead army, Trevor, to reach Princess Ironfan. There's too many soldiers. There's too much flames. What are you gonna do? And suddenly, the goddess of mercy, Guanyin, returns, and she turns Monkey into a bee, so that he can fly over that army and fight Princess Ironfan. That's what's happening here.
You lost me.
That's what happens.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
It's what happens in the legend too.
Somebody comes to me. I'm the god of mercy, okay? And somebody's like, "Hey, we're trying to get to this fan. We got to fight the person whose fan it is. But there's this giant army in our way, we can't get there. Can you help us out?" I'm going to think of a billion other things before I think, "Oh, I'll turn you into a bee." That'll work, right?
Sure. But you got to take that up with the original author. That's not David Alvarez.
I do. I do, and trust me, I hope he's listening. Original author of Monkey Journey to the West, come be on the show. For sure. Defend these artistic choices you've
Absolutely,
made.
and explain some of these political allegories about 16th century China that we've...
I mean, this is one of the 4 great novels in all of Chinese literature.
This is an interesting song, though, and did you watch the music video this week?
I did. It looks very stilted, and I wasn't super into it.
It looks very expensive to me.
It does look very expensive too. There's a whole the army shows up.
How fat and plump were we on Feel Good Inc. money that we were willing to throw this kind of a budget at Jamie Hewlett for the music video of this Mandarin Chinese opera? Like, jeez Louise! I'm sure it cost more than the whole of Saturn's Bars. I'm sure it did.
Didn't he also do that? Didn't he also do that little animated short for the Olympics or something?
Yeah, that was Monkey related too. But I mean, Olympic money. All they do is throw money at people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They break the bank over there. This is a really interesting song, Trevor. I see why it was chosen as the single to represent the record, because it kind of takes the most explicitly Western left turn on the record, probably when those big electric guitars start coming in.
I would agree with that. It's kind of almost the most adventurous song here, but also at the same time not, because it's got some stuff that we're familiar with.
It does, and there's some character growth for Monkey here too. When he finally gets to Princess Ironfan, he's like, "You could just let us borrow this fan. I don't want to fight you. If you just let us borrow this fan, we'll give it right back as soon as we're done."
Whereas, the monkey who showed up at the Dragon King's door and demanded that sick-ass iron rod, he probably would have gone in, guns blazing, no diplomacy. Spending 500 years clenched in the Buddha's hand, it makes you reconsider how you're going to, approach your life from then on.
Let's not discount Tripitaka. I think Tripitaka imparted some of his wisdom as a monk onto Monkey at this point, too. I think he's getting it from a lot of directions, and he's finally starting to understand that maybe you don't always gotta bring the stick down on people when you want something, you know?
Sometimes these troubled kids, they just need a couple of good influences on them.
I really like how even though those electric guitars are coming in, the chord progression does follow the Chinese pentatonic scale, which I very much appreciate. That's very funny. That attention to detail of being like, okay, well, I can't just do a Western chord progression here. I gotta still stick to my 5 notes. Gotta stick to my 5 notes.
Gotta stick to my stars.
You know, Zhe-Ling is back here too as Princess Iron fan from previously A Flying Fish and the Queen Mother of Heaven. And I think at first she sounds a little bit shrill with the part that they wrote for Princess Iron fan. But then when it gets into that double time section towards the outro, she starts to sound kind of chill. I think she's like sounding pretty badass by the end of this one. And like Guan Yin is back there too, doing this kind of like, you know, wavy, goddessy thing. There's a lot happening here. You've got
a lot happening. It's a real climax.
You've got her servants doing that dun, 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 that piece behind it too. There's quite a bit on the plate here. It's not a top 3 for me. Like I think that it's more interesting than it is like successful as a song. But you know, kudos definitely for taking a huge swing at a.
That's about where I fall in it too. These last 2 songs are considerably longer than the rest of the tracks on the album too. This one's 5 minutes, and the next one even reaches 6 minutes.
That's true.
It's the closer,
that's true.
Disappearing Volcano.
Right, so here's where they arrive in paradise. They've grabbed the scriptures and they receive all of their heavenly rewards. I can't remember all of them. I know that Monkey becomes the Buddha of strife, or the Buddha through strife, or something. And then I think Pigsy becomes a janitor of some altar. That's kind of shitty.
Sure, but I mean, hey, it's better than getting hit by a rod 800 times.
I don't remember what Sandy does. He doesn't get an army again. He's something else. And then Tripitaka, he becomes like super enlightened or something. This song's very impressionistic. It's like very stringy and slow, and it makes me wish I had a visual to go along with it. Because honestly, like Monkey B is so dense, and then this is so not dense. You know, like there's not a ton happening in this closing number.
I really like the very end though, when all the music kind of stops and we're left just with the vocals.
Oh, that thing! I gotta tell you a story about that. That's the post-credit scenes of the album. You remember that field recording that started the record?
Yes.
This is another field recording. This was recorded in Meow Village outside of Phoenix City at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're singing a prayer. You can hear the rooster crowing also in that village. And I believe they're singing a prayer that's about this legend also. And I think that this recording was during Damon's big China trip, the train ride back from which would, of course, set us off onto the Demon Days journey. This actually, this little piece of field music, I think is, with all that context, maybe one of the most powerful pieces of music on the whole record.
Yeah, it's crazy that we have an actual little document of that journey.
Kind of awesome and very, very lovely. Yeah. Very lovely. It kind of makes you realize that really you should maybe get a Chinese composer to compose these things, because they know how to work in the pentatonic scale, and they can maybe do something. Maybe get Jamie Hewlett to draw some pictures for your opera, and then let Damon Albarn write some music in the Western scales that he understands. But you know, hindsight's 2020 here, Trevor.
Yeah, and that's Monkey Journey to the
and
West.
I'm glad we have it. I think that
me too. You know, I was really dreading this episode, but that was really quite painless, wasn't it?
It was, and he was. Yeah. I think Damon got a little bit in the weeds at times, but he pulled out some gems too.
Yeah, and you know, if you like me going into this, are feeling at all intimidated by this album or anything, like, oh, it's in a different language, it's not really traditional music, it's very impenetrable and inaccessible, really just like sit down with it and give it a shot, because it is kind of a little more straightforward than you might expect, and it's got some really nice moments on it.
I made a little playlist this week called Journey If You Ain't Got Time for the Whole Thing.
Great, an abridged Journey to the West.
I've also resequenced it so it maybe flows a little bit better. So
I'm all about that shit. So
okay, here we go. Are you ready? We're gonna open with I Love Buddha, then Monkey's World after that, then Whisper, then Heavenly Peach Banquet, then Monkey B, then Pigsy in Space, and then we finish with The Living Sea. Give that a shot. If you're a phobic of Journey, I think that you'll find
That's
that to be a very painless
it's like
listen.
it's not quite a journey to the west, but it's like a little jaunt down a few blocks. So yeah, Damon Albarn, Jamie Hewlett, Gorillaz ? Monkey.
This might actually be the most money Damon Albarn's ever lost for somebody. Do you think?
Maybe. I mean, Plastic Beach has got to have been.
I mean, but staging a
Didn't that kill EMI? Didn't EMI like stop being a thing after Plastic Beach? Isn't that how it happened?
well, I mean, yeah, but I don't know if it was actually because of Plastic Beach, but that is how we like to think of it.
I have like some more questions about that whole like, is this Gorillaz thing though? Like, because I mean, is there a world in which Damon and Jamie were hoping to put this out as a Gorillaz record to kind of like hurry along their contract with EMI?
that's a
Like,
good
you know, maybe they
question.
owed them a couple albums and they wanted to like get one in the can.
That's a good question. I wonder, like, part of it feels like in a post Feel Good Inc. world, they had just hella bargaining power.
Right. And and calling it Gorillaz would have been a big way of marketing this project.
It would have, and I think it would have made a lot of people very upset.
Yeah.
I think it would have.
How do you think that would have affected the future of the Gorillaz project if this had been Gorillaz presents Monkey?
It might have added another year to the gap between phases 2 and 3. To be honest, I think that the boys get their spirits crushed a little bit, and it's very expensive, Trevor, to stage an opera, to stage a full production musical. And I mean, there's no way they even close to recouped anything between the sales of this album and the handful of performances of the opera. So I don't know how they feel about this project today. You know what I was thinking, Trevor, is wouldn't it be sick if they dusted some of this off for the tour? Like, wouldn't it be sick
Oh man.
if they played like Heavenly Peach Banquet or something?
Yeah, or like open an encore with like with Monkeyz
That'd
World.
be sick. That'd be sick.
That'd be pretty wild. I'm sure a lot of people would have no idea what's going on.
I mean, some people would cheer very hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to know. You don't hear them talk about this much anymore.
Hang on. Did you say some people would cheer very hard? Because I can't see that happening. Maybe like, okay, so like they break into maybe like Heavenly Peach Banquet. The GA section just goes completely silent, baffled. There's one guy going like, fuck yeah! Like, I just don't see it happening. I'm sorry.
Well, you know what? Monkey Journey to the West has kind of kicked off what I'm going to call the uneven footing second half of the Collaborator season, Trevor. We started off with 3 albums that I think you and I were very intimately familiar with.
Right. I mean, timeless classics. You got Deltron 3030, you got Danger Doom, and you got The Good, the Bad, and the Queen.
And now we're moving into 3 that maybe a little bit tougher to wrap our heads around, because
we had Monkey, and next week we're going to talk about
the bravest man in the universe,
aka Bobby Womack.
Yeah, so this is the Bobby Womack album from 2012 that Damon Albarn exec produced
with Russell Brand?
Richard Russell,
right. Yeah, that guy.
And I guess following the format of producer of that phase's Gorillaz album plus featured artist of that Gorillaz album that we saw with Danger Doom and before that with Deltron. This is the third in that lineage, I guess, is it?
Yeah, it's almost like Damon was like, hey, Dan was our producer and he did an album with Del. Danger Mouse was our producer for the next one. He did an album with MF Doom. The producer for this one is it's me.
I guess I got to make an album with Bobby Womack.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I've got to make an album with Bobby Womack. Not like that's something I've always wanted to do my entire life. But we'll talk about it.
Here's the thing, Trevor. I've never heard a second of this record before. So this is the first for Hallelujah Monkeyz. I'm going to go into some material totally fresh.
I heard the single when it came out, but I cannot remember it, and I don't think I've heard any of the other songs. I remember the cover with the thumbs.
I remember reviews of this thing being unusually harsh for a grand return of a legacy act, which usually critics are like pretty easy on.
And if anything, he's just an old man. Leave him alone.
Well, by this point, also he was pretty well into the progression of his Alzheimer's. I don't know if he had come forward yet, but I mean, those around him all knew that he was not necessarily at peak Womack, but I'm going to try to bring none of that baggage into my first listen of The Bravest Man in the Universe, and then we'll all check in next week to figure out what we think about it.
Can't wait till then. But how about for now, you tell everybody where they can find us on the internet?
Absolutely. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Amino and on Tumblr, and you can send us an email to hallelujahmonkeys@gmail.com, and you can leave us a review on iTunes, and you can join our Discord at discord.me/monkeys with a Z. Big shout out to Stupot, who runs our YouTube page, who is the best. We love her. And also, big shout out to those of you who have continued to donate to this show through patreon.com/hallelujahmonkeys. You guys are absolutely the best. Also, don't forget, as usual, stick around until after the credits because we got a brand new song from Gorillaz versus Law Gas. This one is called Leashes.
Ooh.
What do you make of that? What do you make of that?
Law Gas just consistently turning in the best remixes of the phase, in my opinion. This one's pretty cool.
This one's sick, and Law Gas continually turns in, I think, the best remixes of the Gorillaz versus Law Gas project in this phase too.
Yeah, so let's sign off so we can get to that. That's all we've got time for this week. As always, I've been Trevor Ickrath.
I've been Dylan Flynn.
And until next week, don't get lost in heaven.
The Mandarin word for demo.